welcome to the Yogi Bear's 7 Steps to Becoming More Mental Health Aware. So here we are, step 3 of our 7 steps to becoming more mental health aware. We've had step 1, tuning into those behavioural changes that could be an indicator that something's not quite right. Step 2, seeking to understand from a space of non-judgmental curiosity, speaking really positively to somebody else's self-concept and self-esteem. Our third step is all around the type of language that we use with somebody. And again, there's lots of things to consider here, but I want to kind of give you a really simple trick or tip that you can use when you are speaking to somebody, or particularly when you're listening to somebody who may now be choosing to open up a little bit about how they're feeling. So reflective language, it's a great tool, because what we can often find ourselves struggling with when somebody is giving us a lot of information about perhaps how they're feeling or what's going on for them, is we can struggle to not sort of almost challenge that back or not try and solve the problems sometimes, particularly if it's someone that we care about. I don't know a parent out there that doesn't, when their child comes to them with a problem, want to instantly fix it for them in some way. I've not met a good parent out there that doesn't go straight to that instinctive place. And actually, if you're a good friend, or if you're a good partner, or somebody, just somebody who cares about other people, we can really fall into the trap of going to that space of trying to fix things, trying to problem solve. Now, where mental health is concerned, there could be any number of things going on here. A person could be suffering from depression, it could be reactive depression, it could be clinical depression, where there is a chemical imbalance going on, a hormone imbalance going on in the brain. There could be, it could be repressed grief. There could be so many reasons why a person is struggling, and we're not GPs, we're not diagnosticians. And actually, in that sense, trying to fix it might actually be putting us in danger, or putting us at risk, or putting the person that we're trying to help at risk, because we don't know what's happening fully. What we can do is continue to be a supportive influence in that person's life, and we can continue, like I mentioned yesterday, to chip away at that person's sense of self, their self-esteem and their self-confidence. And sometimes using reflective language can really help with that. What reflective language can also do is it can actually start to develop some incongruence in what a person is saying. Very often when we're struggling with things, we might sort of go on a bit of a rant or a rampage, or actually if we're feeling down or suffering from depression or anxiety or any kind of repression, what can happen is that what comes out of our mouths is very much affected by that, and perhaps isn't the truth, and it might sound quite worrying or quite frightening or quite scary at times. And that's when we're at risk of wanting to either fix it quickly, because actually what I'm hearing is not good, or actually even challenge it back. You know, I've lost count of the amount of times that I've heard people, say, oh, I feel bad about myself, or I'm really struggling with myself at the moment. Perhaps I'm struggling with my body image, or perhaps I'm struggling with how successful I feel. And somebody who cares will turn around and will say, oh, don't be ridiculous. You look great. You're doing a fantastic job. And we say those things with the best of intentions, and it comes from a really, really good place. But actually what that does is, it says to that person, I don't understand how you're feeling. It almost says to that person, actually, how you're feeling is wrong. And that's not a great place to be if you are struggling with something, because now not only are you struggling with something, you're also wrong to be struggling with it. And again, this response comes from the best place, but I want us to have a think about how we can potentially respond in a different way. And reflective language is great, because reflective language does, like I say, a couple of things. One, it allows a person to hear what they're saying and to perhaps start to form some incongruence or discrepancy. It also demonstrates that you have listened and you have really understood what that person is saying. And like I said in step 2, that's so important in terms of speaking to a person's self-concept. It says that actually you are important to me, you matter to me, and that is a big deal. So what do we mean by reflective language? Well, there's a few ways in which we can do this. Reflective language is about what you say back to an individual, and sometimes that can be paraphrasing. So if someone were to say to you, I'm really struggling with my body at the moment, I just feel so fat and I feel so disgusting and I'm really, really struggling with it. It's not about parrot fashion. It's not about going back and saying, so what you've just said to me is you feel really fat, you feel really disgusting. It's not about that. It's about paraphrasing. It's about expressing that you maybe have heard a person. And here's the thing about reflective language. It's not agreeing with the person. It's not saying, yes, you're right, you are disgusting. It's about saying, actually, what it sounds to me like is, and actually a really good way of starting a reflective language statement is, it sounds like, because I'm going to repeat back to you what it sounds like you're feeling, or how it sounds like what it sounds to me like you're saying. So if somebody were to say to you, I'm feeling really disgusted about myself at the moment, you go back to the person and said, it sounds like this is something that you're really struggling with. You know, it sounds like that must be really difficult for you. And again, it's just about offering back. It's not about agreeing with, it's not about colluding with, it's just about offering back what a person is saying. And it might be that you can offer something back, like, so what it sounds to me like is that you're saying you're really obese and you're actually at a massive risk to your own health here. And actually what a person might then turn around and say is, well actually no, I know I'm not obese, and I know I'm not massively risking my own health. And all of a sudden, they're finding their own discrepancy in it. You could have been the one to turn around and say, don't be ridiculous, you're not obese. Don't be ridiculous, you're not a health risk. But actually, that's us just directly challenging back. You can use reflective language to help get a person to actually find their own discrepancies in what they're saying, just by repeating back to them what you're hearing from them. It's quite a clever little trick, really, because not only does it convey that you've listened and understood their point of view, actually it gets them to start challenging themselves a little bit. It gets them to start checking what they're saying and finding their own discrepancies. And all you've done is simply reflected back what you've heard from that particular person. You haven't challenged, you haven't agreed with, you haven't tried to fix it, you've simply reflected back what you're hearing from that person. And sometimes that might be the only thing that we can do. But please do not underestimate the power of that, because again, it speaks to the self-concept, it speaks to self-esteem, because it says you've listened to me and you've understood me. And it also really starts to encourage some of that self-challenge. And that's the golden rule here. I'm telling you now, if we can get people to start challenging themselves and challenging their own way of thinking, so we don't have to do it, we become the person that is by their side when they go on that journey. We become the person that is supporting them. We don't become the person that has challenged them and that has potentially gone into a contentious situation with them, which keeps us safe and it keeps them safe alongside us as well. And when it comes to yourself, we've talked very much about how we apply some of these tips to ourselves as well. So if you are picking up on some uncharacteristic behaviour changes in yourself and you've suspended the judgment and you started to try and understand what's really going on here underneath for you, and sometimes it is about that, using that reflective language back. Journaling can be a great way of dealing with this. So if you are struggling with anything and you're wanting to explore it, perhaps you can write down how it is that you're feeling, write down some of the answers to the questions that you're finding for yourself, and then you can see the words, you can read that back, you can reflect that back, and that in itself may well start to develop some discrepancy. You might write something down and think, well, actually that's probably not entirely true. I might have misworded that or been quite general with that. But it's about giving ourselves something to reflect on, something to look back at before we do. And at the end of the day, the thing to remember here is, and I keep saying it because I really want to be clear on that, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just someone who has tuned into this stuff because I think knowing more about my own mental health and being able to support other people's mental health is so important. We're not diagnosticians, we're not GPs, but we are people that can support people. And if we get to a point where actually this is going beyond my capabilities, this is going to be, I'm worried about this person, then we might need to make some recommendations about where they go next. It might be that we say, do you know what, it sounds to me like this is something you've been struggling with for a long time. Personally, I'm not convinced that this is something that you can handle alone anymore. And my thoughts are, you might need to seek some professional help for this. And you know what? If you go down that route, I will be by your side every single step of the way. You do not have to go through this on your own. What a powerful statement to be able to say to somebody simply by reflecting back what you've heard and what you've understood from them. So there you go. My tip number 3 for becoming more mental health aware: using reflective language when in that conversation with somebody. And you know what? This is not about being diagnosticians. This is not about us being psychologists. This is almost about mental health first aid. We might be the first person that comes into contact with somebody who's struggling. So it's really important that we are equipped with some ways in which we can speak to a person in a way that isn't going to exacerbate the situation, that's potentially going to diffuse some tension, and that is going to chip away at that negative self-esteem that is potentially bubbling underneath. So tune in tomorrow for step 4 on our 7 steps to becoming more mental health aware. Enjoy the rest of the week. Hope you've been enjoying these videos so far. Please do feel free to leave any comments, any questions. If there's anything else that you'd like to see, I've got a few more of these videos to do, so I'd be more than happy to address some of your concerns, your challenges, and some of your questions. Get in touch, stay safe, and have a great week.